After 40, stress hits different. The stress you already have is simply lasting longer inside your body.
You are generating continuous cortisol spikes. Elevated cortisol is directly linked to visceral fat accumulation. You must increase your recovery capacity.
I want you to picture something. You hit 40, or maybe, you're well into your 40s, and there's this creeping sensation that you are just constantly tired.
Yeah, that is a really common feeling.
Right, and you start telling yourself that life is simply more stressful now, you have more responsibility, so you assume you're experiencing this, like, illusion of aging, that your body has just stopped bouncing back the way it did a decade ago.
Which makes total sense from the outside looking in.
Exactly. But here is the dramatic, almost hidden reality we are exploring today. You aren't actually experiencing more stress. The hidden biological shift is that the stress you already have is simply lasting longer inside your body.
Yeah, the actual physiological half-life of your stress response changes. And because nobody talks about this underlying biological mechanism, well, we walk around blaming ourselves.
We really do.
We think we are failing at handling our daily lives when in reality, our internal machinery has just shifted its operating rules.
Welcome to the Living Better podcast. Living longer is a science, living better is a choice. I'm Kate.
And I'm Ethan.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you want content that goes beyond the obvious and helps you understand what is really happening inside your body, please subscribe, like, and share this episode.
Absolutely. And before we get into the science, just a quick medical disclaimer. This episode is for educational purposes only, so always consult a healthcare professional for actual medical advice.
Right, of course. So our mission for today's episode comes from a fascinating source document titled, After 40, Stress Hits Different.
It is such a great piece. We're going to unpack exactly why normal, everyday stress suddenly morphs into chronic stress after you cross that 40-year threshold.
And more importantly, how you can build a biological framework to actually recover from it.
Yeah, so let's start with this foundational misunderstanding we all seem to have about aging and stress.
The idea that the world is just throwing more at us.
Exactly. We think the input has increased. But the truth is, it's a dramatic slowdown in how our body processes the hormones associated with those challenges. The clearance has decreased.
Wait, so when we experience a stressful event, our body releases hormones like cortisol to help us deal with the threat, right?
Spot on. In our 20s and 30s, once the threat is gone, the body clears those hormones pretty quickly. You bounce back.
Right.
But research published in Psychoneuroendocrinology looked specifically at this mechanism, and they found that older adults exhibit prolonged cortisol elevation long after a stressful event has completely ended.
Oh, wow. So the stress stays in your system when the situation is completely resolved.
Yeah,
Like you might have an intense meeting at 10 in the morning and your body is still marinating in that biological cocktail of stress at 4 in the afternoon.
yes, exactly. The body essentially forgets how to turn the stress response off.
It makes me think of a clogged drain in a sink. If you turn on the faucet, the water, which represents the stress in this scenario, isn't flowing any faster than it did in your 20s.
Right, the volume of water coming out of the tap is exactly the same.
But because your biological drain is clogged, the water just doesn't empty out. So the cortisol just keeps rising, pooling up, and eventually overflowing.
That is a perfect analogy. The faucet pressure hasn't changed, but the drainage system is compromised. And there was a fascinating paper in Nature Reviews Endocrinology that actually looked at this exact clogged drain effect.
Oh, really? What did they find?
They found it is the result of 3 bodily systems shifting simultaneously as we age. It centers around what's called the HPA axis.
The HPA axis.
Think of it as your body's emergency response command center. It is a direct communication line between your brain, specifically the hypothalamus and pituitary glands, and the adrenal glands sitting right on top of your kidneys.
Okay, so if the drain is clogged, where is the blockage starting? Like, what is breaking down in this command center?
Well, the first major shift is that cortisol clearance simply slows down. And a lot of that has to do with the liver.
The liver. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, your liver's responsible for breaking down and filtering out hormones the same way it filters out alcohol or toxins.
Hmm.
And as we age, subtle changes in liver metabolism mean it just doesn't process cortisol as efficiently.
So it's treating the hormone almost like a backlog of paperwork. It just can't get through.
Exactly. And on top of that, the hormonal feedback loop weakens. Usually, when cortisol levels get high enough in your bloodstream, your brain gets a signal to stop producing more.
But after 40, that signal gets muffled.
Yes, exactly.
It is like a thermostat that doesn't realize the room is already boiling hot, so it just keeps the heater running.
Yeah.
If the liver is failing to clear the cortisol out, how does the rest of the body react to swimming in that stress hormone?
Well, that leads to the second shift, which is a drop in nervous system flexibility. You know how your body has two main gears.
The sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight mode, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode.
Exactly. In your younger years, your nervous system is incredibly elastic. It can snap from high alert back down to deep rest pretty seamlessly.
But after 40, that elasticity stiffens.
Right. You literally get stuck in the sympathetic gear. You lose access to the biological pathway that allows you to truly rest.
Which perfectly explains that awful feeling of being simultaneously wired and tired. You want to sleep, but your engine is just revving in the driveway.
It is a terrible feeling. And this directly impacts your energy levels, which is the third breakdown. Mitochondrial efficiency declines.
Oh, the mitochondria, the
Yeah.
powerhouses of the cell.
You got it. They are the microscopic powerhouses inside your cells that generate your energy. They convert the food you eat into usable cellular fuel.
So when their efficiency drops, you produce less energy overall.
Exactly. So not only is the stress lingering longer because of the liver and your nervous system is stuck on high alert, but your cells physically have fewer energetic resources to deal with a sustained demand.
So you have less energy to fight a battle that is lasting twice as long. No wonder everyone feels exhausted.
Yeah, it takes a massive toll.
But here's where the source material highlights something quite insidious. We talk about stress as if it is always this massive life event.
Like a move, a job change, a financial crisis.
Right. But the most damaging culprit is something much quieter, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Is the constant, relentless hum of microstressors.
Microstressors.
Yeah, the emails, the phone notifications, the daily mental load of managing a household or constantly checking the news.
This brings up a really critical evolutionary blind spot because the biological machinery we just talked about, the HPA axis, the cortisol spikes, they evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to keep us safe from physical predators.
Right. If a wild animal jumps out at you, you need a massive spike of cortisol to run away or fight for your life.
But your central nervous system cannot differentiate between a modern, mildly annoying work email from your boss and a prehistoric physical threat.
That is the crazy part. To your brain, a threat is a threat.
Yeah.
So every single ping, every Slack message, every time you mentally cycle through your to-do list at a red light, you are generating continuous cortisol spikes.
Wait, hold on, I have to stop you there. Because when we think of stress, we usually associate it with a tight neck, maybe a tension headache, or just being in a terrible mood.
Right.
But the sources we are looking at say this constant low-level stress is fundamentally changing our body composition. How in the world does a pinging cell phone turn into belly fat?
I know. It sounds almost ridiculous until you look at the clinical reality. There is a study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism that proved elevated cortisol is directly linked to visceral fat accumulation.
That is the hard belly fat that wraps around your organs, right?
Exactly, because your brain interprets that pinging cell phone as a constant physical danger. It assumes you're going to need energy to survive a famine or a long battle.
Oh, I see. So it prioritizes storing easily accessible fuel right near your vital organs.
Yes, the cortisol itself acts as a chemical messenger. literally telling the body to hoard fat for an emergency that is never actually going to happen.
That is just wild. It is a survival mechanism gone entirely wrong.
And it gets worse.
Yeah.
Because your body thinks it is fighting a never-ending war, it will literally consume its own muscle tissue for quick energy. This chronic post-40 stress triggers muscle breakdown.
So it cannibalizes the very tissue that keeps your metabolism healthy.
Exactly.
That is terrifying. You are losing muscle and gaining visceral fat just by checking your phone too much.
Yeah, and it drives insulin resistance, which sets the stage for metabolic disease. It even accelerates memory decline because chronic cortisol actually shrinks the hippocampus.
The part of your brain responsible for learning and memory.
Right. Harvard Health strongly connects this resulting state of chronic inflammation to cardiovascular disease and accelerated aging at a cellular level.
So the low-level hum of modern life is physically wearing down our biology.
Without us even realizing it.
Usually when you read an article about the dangers of stress, the grand conclusion is some variation of just reduce your stress.
Which, frankly, is completely useless advice.
Right. It fails miserably for people over 40. You can't just quit your job, abandon your mortgage, and move to a deserted island to avoid emails.
No, you can't. Telling someone trapped in this biological loop to just relax ignores the physiological reality of what is happening inside them.
Because you cannot always reduce the stressors in your life.
Exactly. So the paradigm shift, the absolute core of the solution presented in the sources, is that you must increase your recovery capacity.
Meaning, if the world is going to demand more from you, you have to build a bigger engine to handle it.
Precisely. And the source material actually breaks this down into a comprehensive recovery framework.
It starts with identifying the silent damage, the behaviors we must absolutely stop doing because they are pouring concrete down that already clogged drain.
Yes, what they call the red zone. First on that list is the habit of powering through fatigue.
Oh, I am so guilty of this.
We all are. In your 20s, you could drink 3 coffees at 3:00 p.m. and just force your way through a wall of exhaustion.
But after 40,
After 40, powering through when your mitochondrial efficiency is low just causes massive cellular damage. It forces your adrenal glands to pump out even more stress hormones to keep you upright.
and then there is skipping recovery days. We have been conditioned to treat rest as a reward for hard work rather than a fundamental biological requirement for survival.
Yeah, it is a huge problem. But the one we are probably all most guilty of is late night screen exposure.
Oh, yeah. The research from the NIH on this is eye-opening. They found that sleep disruption heavily amplifies cortisol dysregulation.
The mechanism here is tied to melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that helps you sleep, but it also acts as an antagonist to cortisol. It helps suppress the stress response.
So when you stare at a phone or tablet late at night, the blue light artificially keeps the sun up in your brain.
Exactly. You kill your melatonin production. And if you kill the melatonin, there is nothing to suppress the cortisol. You lock your body in a vicious, never-ending stress loop while you are lying in bed.
Moving beyond what to avoid, the framework emphasizes tracking the right metrics to understand your recovery. The yellow zone.
Right. Most people track their overall weight on a scale and count how many total hours they spent in bed.
But both are the wrong metrics if you want to understand what stress is doing to your body.
Absolutely. The ultimate proxy for stress resilience is heart rate variability, or HRV.
Okay, explain that. That isn't your resting heart rate, right?
Right, it is not. It is the tiny millisecond variations in time between each individual heartbeat. When you breathe in, your heart speeds up slightly. When you breathe out, it slows down.
And that variation is a sign of a healthy, responsive nervous system.
Exactly. So a higher HRV means your nervous system is flexible. It can switch between gears effectively,
So a low HRV means your heart is beating like a metronome.
which is a massive red flag that you are stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight gear.
And many smartwatches and fitness trackers measure this now. It gives you a daily window into how well your body actually recovered the night before.
Yep. And instead of just looking at the number on the scale, we should be tracking our waist circumference.
Because, as we discussed with the visceral fat study, your overall weight might stay exactly the same, but if your waist is expanding, it is a massive indicator that cortisol is pooling in your system and storing emergency fuel.
Spot on. And for sleep, instead of obsessing over total hours, track sleep fragmentation.
Waking up multiple times a night staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m.
Yeah, that is a major indicator that your cortisol is spiking when it should be at its absolute lowest point in the 24-hour cycle.
This brings us to the most actionable part of the framework, the green zone, the high leverage interventions to proactively repair that stress clearance system.
Yes, the edge actions. The sources emphasize nervous system training.
Notice we are calling it training, not just relaxing. Sitting on the couch watching television doesn't change your physiology.
No, it doesn't. Nervous system training is about forcing your body to adapt. The sources highlight specific techniques backed by research from Stanford and the Andrew Huberman Lab, specifically focusing on improving your vagal tone.
The vagal tone, the vagus nerve, is the main informational highway connecting your brain to your internal organs.
Exactly. It controls your parasympathetic nervous system. When you have high vagal tone, your body can calm itself down rapidly after a stressor.
And one of the techniques they highlight for this is the physiological sigh.
It is a specific breathing pattern. 2 sharp inhales through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth.
What is actually happening inside the body when we do that? Why does that work better than just taking a deep breath?
Well, when you are stressed, the tiny air sacs in your lungs called alveoli collapse. Carbon dioxide builds up in your bloodstream, which triggers even more panic in your brain.
Ah, I see. So that double inhale forcefully pops those air sacs back open.
Yes. And the long exhale offloads maximum carbon dioxide. It's a mechanical way to rapidly slow down your heart rate and send a signal of safety to your brain.
The sources also mention controlled cold exposure to train the nervous system, like taking a cold shower or plunging into an ice bath.
Yeah, that is a big one.
Wait, you are telling a listener who is already exhausted, already overwhelmed with life, that the solution is to jump into an ice-cold shower.
I know.
That sounds like adding a massive stressor, not taking one away. How does that possibly make sense?
It sounds totally counterintuitive. But you are intentionally putting your body under a short, heavily controlled stress, the freezing cold.
Okay.
Then, while you are inside that stressor, you use your breathing to force your nervous system to calm down. You're essentially doing reps in the gym for your nervous system.
Oh, so you are teaching your brain and your body how to clear stress hormones faster.
Exactly. So that when a real-life stressor hits you later that day, your system knows exactly how to handle it.
Speaking of doing reps, the next intervention involves an actual gym, strength training. The sources emphasize lifting weights over pure cardiovascular exercise. They describe muscle as a metabolic shield.
Yeah, this is crucial. When you lift weights and build muscle tissue, you drastically improve your insulin sensitivity.
Because muscle tissue is incredibly greedy for energy, right? It
Yeah.
absorbs glucose from your bloodstream highly efficiently.
Exactly. This prevents the wild blood sugar crashes that often trigger massive cortisol spikes in the middle of the afternoon.
So more muscle means a much more regulated hormonal environment, which literally blunts the biological impact of daily stress.
Spot on.
The next intervention is quite counterintuitive, especially in our modern world. It is called strategic boredom.
Doing absolutely nothing is now a literal biological intervention.
We actually touched on this in a past episode when we talked about how doing nothing is the best thing you can do for your brain health and longevity.
Right. By introducing strategic boredom, you are reducing dopamine overstimulation. Our modern environment is constantly hijacking our dopamine receptors with fast-paced digital input.
Social media, rapid-fire emails, endless entertainment.
Exactly. When you intentionally sit quietly, without your phone, without a screen, just letting your mind wander, You give those receptors a break.
You lower your baseline stress level, you stop throwing more water into the sink so the drain finally has a chance to catch up.
That is the perfect way to look at it.
And that leads perfectly into the final strategy, time-restricted stress. The goal here is to contain the stress so it doesn't leak all day long.
Yeah, the sources suggest scheduling worry time and batching your decisions. Instead of letting anxiety dictate your entire day, you put a fence around it.
So you decide that you will deal with stressful emails, difficult phone calls, and hard decisions between, say, 1:00 p.m. and 2:00 p.m.
Exactly. Outside of that window, you categorically refuse to engage with the stressor.
This sounds exactly like intermittent fasting, but for your mind.
It really is.
Instead of snacking on anxiety for 16 hours a day, checking your email every 10 minutes, and keeping your cortisol constantly elevated, you are condensing your worry into a specific, manageable feeding window.
You give your mind fasting periods to clear out the biological junk.
You are giving the liver, the nervous system, and the mitochondria time to actually process and clear the circulating hormones before you dump another load of stress into the system.
Yeah, you are finally letting the drain do its job.
If we pull all of this together from the source material, there are 3 vital laws for anyone navigating life over 40. Number 1, stress lasts longer in your body. The clearance system has slowed down. It is a biological reality you cannot ignore.
And number 2, recovery, not avoidance, is the real solution. You can't hide from life, but you can build a better engine to process it.
Right. And number 3, your daily habits will either extend the stress loop or finally resolve it.
This really leads to the ultimate reframe here.
Yeah.
When you wake up feeling exhausted, your body isn't aging against you. It isn't failing you.
Yeah.
It is merely adapting to what you repeatedly give it. If you give it constant micro stressors without dedicated nervous system training, it adapts by storing visceral fat and staying on high alert to protect you.
But if you give it cold exposure, strength training, and time-restricted worry, it adapts by becoming deeply resilient.
Exactly.
It is incredibly empowering when you realize the control is actually in your hands. But I want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over that really reframes everything we have talked about today.
Okay.
Think about society's reward system. We are culturally praised for the exact behaviors that destroy our stress clearance.
Oh, absolutely.
The employee who answers emails at midnight gets the promotion. The parent who sacrifices every ounce of their sleep is seen as dedicated. We are trying to heal a biological system in a culture that actively monetizes our cortisol.
Wow, that is so true. You are fighting not just biology, but a deeply ingrained cultural expectation.
Right. So realize that taking time to recover isn't just a personal health choice. It is an act of rebellion against a system that wants you constantly wired. And look closely at your current relaxation habits. Are your go-to downtime activities, like doom scrolling on the couch, actually just feeding your body more micro-stressors disguised as rest?
Such a great question to end on.
If this changed how you see stress, please share this episode with someone who needs it. We all know someone who is constantly powering through fatigue, thinking they just need more coffee. This is the Living Better podcast. We're here to help you think clearly about living well.
Thanks for staying with us until the end.
See you in our next episode. Don't forget to subscribe.